Welcome to today's Certified Livestock Manager webinar series, brought to you by the Ohio State University Extension Water Quality Team. Thank you all for joining us. I am your moderator today. My name is Heather Torlina. I am the Water Quality Associate that serves Williams, Fulton, and Lucas County. Today we have three speakers for you. The topics are listed. We're going to have Brady Campbell first up, talking about the vegetative management within utility scale solar. Next up will be Dara Barclay with eBarns, talking about eBarns. And then we're going to wrap things up today with Kendall Lovejoy, who's going to give us a preview about the Manure Expo. I will introduce them, our speakers, in a little more detail in a minute, but let me talk about a couple of housekeeping um, dates that I want you to know about. First of all, our next CLM webinar is August 4th. From 10 to 11:30, we're going to be talking about application record keeping and regulations. Please feel free to register if you haven't already at that site listed to the left. We do have a save the date. We have a field day coming up. The water quality team is hosting a field day called Ditch the Runoff on August 20th from 9 to 12 at the Kevin Miller's farm over in Williams County. And finally, was the North American Manure Expo, end of July, which you'll hear more about in this webinar. The registration is open. Please feel free to register for that at your convenience. And again, today's webinar is brought to you by the water quality team at Ohio State Extension. And these are the water quality extension associates serving the various counties that you see listed. So on to today's webinar. I want to just take some time to introduce all three of our speakers right now. First up will be Brady Campbell. Brady Campbell is the assistant professor and small state ruminant extension specialist with the Department of Animal Sciences at The Ohio State University. The topic he is going to cover is discussing the current Department of Energy program related to vegetation management within utility scale solar. His aim is to investigate multi-use land management strategies and to put farming back into the hands of farmers. Next up will be Dara Barclay. Dara started as the program manager for the eFields and eBarns on-farm research programs in January of 2024. She has a background in marketing, publishing, and science communication with degrees in agricultural communication and agricultural and extension education. She enjoys leading efforts that help support farmers through well-done science and knowledge sharing. She is currently working on the next eBarns publication, which is expected to be available later this year in August. And finally up, we'll have Kendall Lovejoy, who is the ag educator in Fulton County. And again, he'll be giving a preview of the Manure Expo at the end of July. So if there are any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the Q&A chat or Q&A box. Also, please feel free to use the chat box as well. I will warn that Brady, who is up first, I know is currently, from what I understand, actually in the field doing some research. So after his first talk, he may duck out here. So please feel free to leave questions for him, and we will round up any questions for him and either send them through email or get them to him some other way. So, all right, Brady, are you ready to go?
I think so. You can hear me okay, Heather?
Yes, I actually
All right.
can.
Excellent. I'm glad. You're exactly right. I'm sitting in the middle of a solar field in the back end of my truck. We don't have a building out here at the site yet to be able to do these kind of presentations in, and it's been kind of a challenge. I think with everybody that you guys are aware is that we're at the mercy of the weather, and we finally have a nice stretch here for us. So we're getting ready to go out and collect some of our forage samples. Heather, it says I need to have the ability to share my screen here. All right. And what I'll probably do, folks, is I hate doing it, but I'm going to turn my video off just to help with the streaming on my connection on my end. But if I can get this shared here real quick for us, we can get into our topic. Everything look okay there for you, Heather?
Yep, actually, it looks great.
All right, perfect. Let's hope that it continues moving forward with that. So, appreciate you guys for having me on here, and sorry for the abruptness of this. And please, Heather, let me know if I start to cut out or if I need to reiterate anything. But wanted to come here to you guys and talk a little bit about our project through the Department of Energy, DOE. We received a $2 million grant through the FARMS program, which stands for Farming of Agrivoltaics Research at Megawatt Scale. And so our goal is to take a look at the realm of agrivoltaics. We're one of six across the country doing some of this work here for us. And really what we're interested in is integrating agricultural forage production, livestock production systems within these utility scale solar farms. Big shout out to my team here. I'm certainly not a one-man band as it comes to this. It's a massive, massive undertaking, and we've got several of our colleagues out here in the field today collecting our samples as well. Myself in the Department of Animal Sciences, you can see several folks in the Department of Extension, including Eric Romick, Elizabeth Hawkins, Christine Gelly, Trevor Corboy, Amanda Doritas. We've also got Dr. Scott Shear there from the Department of Food, Agriculture, and Biological Engineering. And we would certainly be remiss if we don't talk about our partners that we are working with, especially Sarah Mosier. Big shout out to her. She is the agrivoltaic specialist with Savion Energy, who is a subsidiary of Shell. You'll hear me continually using the term agrivoltaics, and for those that are unfamiliar with the term, agrivoltaics just simply means farming within a solar system. So I think we need to first start what's currently known out there about these types of systems. As it relates to agrivoltaics, research that is previously conducted and published in that peer-reviewed literature is conducted on a small scale basis. Many of those sites far smaller than 40 acres. That's about the largest that I've been able to find. We do know that there are similar concepts of these integrated systems as we think about vineyards, silvopastoral systems, agroforestry production systems, just kind of altering and changing that landscape, going into a different environment. From my standpoint, being an animal scientist, folks are really excited to find alternative ways to manage this vegetation within these sites other than mowing or making them into turf grass or putting down gravel, etc., and utilizing livestock. The livestock species that I'm most fond of using, and I believe the industry is as well in the current state, is the use of sheep. Cattle are just simply too large. It would take a lot more in terms of infrastructure and development to get these panels put up to a great enough height for those animals to get up and under. Goats are just ornery, plain and simple. They are a bit more destructive. They like to climb and crawl. They will chew on some of these wires. But sheep, on the other hand, tend to be pretty complacent within these areas and work out extremely well. The one thing that I continue to stress as we move forward with this subject is that vegetation management does not equal animal growth or performance. And so, even though we have these ruminant species out here grazing on a forage based or fiber based diet, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting their nutrition on a daily basis that they need. We can also think about forage yield. It's a bit of a contradictive statement. In the solar world, we want to keep that vegetation as short as possible in terms of height and stature to reduce effects with energy efficiency, especially as it relates to shading. However, we do want to have some type of yield. Another piece of this puzzle that we're working on is utilizing these previously row crop systems. These farmers are still in place. They know how to work their systems. Let's just alter the crop that they're producing and perhaps be able to make some high quality hay that is much needed, especially after last year's drought that the state experienced. There are several different kinds of ground cover options. We've already discussed those a few. Um, there's also impacts of construction and panel shade. We're going to talk about that and some of our objectives we plan to outline to address and answer as we work through this research project. But at the end of the day, we need to ensure that those recommendations and those pieces of that puzzle that we're working on together, those solutions that we're developing must be scalable. So our primary work, of course, us here in the departments that I've listed in the College of Ag, BTR, that's between the rows. We are farming between the rows. That is our subsidiary group within Savion. And again, Sarah Mosier, big shout out to her and thank you to her for her contributions and getting us involved. She's the lead on that side as it relates to that work. And of course, Rona Farms and Pigtails LLC. That's actually Sarah's family up in the Van Wert area that set out with some of our original team members, including Eric Romick and Christine Gelly, that were working on some of these pilot studies that provided the data that allowed us to apply for this grant. So I just want to go over some of those preliminary research findings that we found and help us paint a better picture and understand why we're moving forward with this. Excuse me. So as you can see here, this is just a mock setup of a field. This is the modular array. So these gray bars represent those solar panels that are mounted on those brackets. You can see we were interested in controls, cover crops, alfalfas, and different hay mixes as well. You can see amongst these different rates, amongst these different seedings, my apology, we were also very much so interested in differences as it relates to seeding rate. So for example, here, if we go down to our alfalfa, our general recommended standards according to our guide that OSU Extension uses would be 100%, but we were also interested, how does this microclimate and this environment change the way that these forage seedlings may germinate and survive? So we went both directions. We reduced it to 75%, the recommended seeding rate, and then we also added another 25% to see if that was needed in these types of systems, because again, these are a lot of unknowns and a lot of pockets in the literature. So you'll see that we do have some controlled forages. Those are just a basic seeding that you would see amongst these forage arrays that the solar company gets to select. It may include some natives. It may include some pollinators as well. We were definitely interested in the utilization of cover crops. You can see in this project specifically, they were utilizing teff grass as their summer annual and then that crimson clover to carry them through the fall. Alfalfa and the hay mixes using a cool season grass and legume mix. Those were both for the idea and the concept of utilizing these forages for hay production, but also a higher quality feedstuffs to allow these animals to graze on and hopefully generate a bit more production on the back end. So just wanted to give you some results from that study, and I think that's just a beautiful picture of that small array, that this array was actually generating enough power to supply power to these folks' swine facility as well. Help you understand, you can see the crew here on the upper left-hand side. Barren dirt worked up extremely well and nice. And really what you can see is over a year's time, alfalfa was flourishing. We do have some challenges, folks, as it relates to weeds and weed pressure. You can see the foxtail there in our cool season hay mix. It was only a problem in 21. Once we rolled into 2022, everything worked out quite well. You can also see a lot of times people say, well, it's not possible to make hay between the rows of these solar panels. You just can't get equipment through. Well, here's a really nice picture of us demonstrating our abilities to get a standard size tractor. I come from the hills of southeastern Ohio, so I'll consider this a standard size tractor between these rows and these alleys. I know this is a lot of data for us to crunch, but we'll walk through it here. I wanted to help us paint the full picture. This is the forage nutritional value, or nutritive value, if you would, of that alfalfa that was harvested there in 2021. You can see on the left-hand side here, we've got our alfalfas outlined, whether it was in the shade or if it was in that control area that was um, outside of that array itself, so there wasn't any negative impact associated with the shading effect. You can see that our green bars are crude protein percentages, and then our yellow bars are TDN. In the livestock world, we're using TDN on our forage test to help us better understand the quality of that hay. It's the percentage of that product that we're creating and making that's going to be digestible by our animals. For example, here, a lot of these are in the upper 60 or low to mids 60s here. So out of 100 pounds, roughly 62 to 65% of this feed that we're feeding will be digested and utilized by these animals. And so what I like to show here is that as we kind of look through this process here, when we compare shade compared to our open sun plots, alfalfa realistically liked the shade and performed a bit better in the shade when we compared it to our general productive agricultural systems. You can see that as indicated by our increase in crude protein percentages, upwards of 26, 27% compared to those 21 to 25% out in the sun. We don't see a lot of difference in terms of our seeding rates, and you also don't see a lot of difference in terms of the utilization of that feed as represented by TDN. But at the end of the day, a lot of our feedstuffs, as always, are going to be sold on a crude protein percentage basis. Apologies, I'm not sure why that continues to click forward. You can also see here off to the right-hand side that we do have some issues with weeds. In that control area, it was well managed. When we got into those shaded areas, actually the weeds didn't do too awful bad. Not a lot of weeds, but you can see that we did have to get around that, just like any other system if you're putting in a new crop of forage. You can see here as we roll into 2022, our forages do so much better, folks, and it really speaks to its ability to work in this type of system. I think like any other type of forage production system, you're going to have that establishment year, which requires a bit of time, a bit of patience, but trust the system, it will come back. You can see represented here our alfalfa to the left, our cool season hay mix with our orchard grass and our red clover to the right. And then in the middle, you can see our teff grass thriving quite well within that system. And also just a really nice picture showing that within the rows. Again, showing our ability to be able to harvest these crops is crucial to allow this to move forward. And as you can see, some of those standardized hay making equipments are able to successfully flip down through those rows to make a viable product for us. So as we compare 21 to 22, we do see a depression a bit in terms of our overall crude protein. That would be indicative of us needing to provide a little bit of fertilizer, but you can see that our TDN still remains the same on that alfalfa. As we roll into our second cut on that alfalfa here, you can see that it does depress even further here, again, further supporting the need of some of that care of those forages as we clip and harvest them. But nonetheless, these are certainly acceptable in my book, folks, as it relates to animal feedstuffs as well. I know plenty of sheep producers as well as beef cattle producers that would certainly be happy as a lark to be able to receive some of those forages to put into their systems at those ratings. So we can also think that, and we realize that haymaking is not 100% efficient. And so as we look at some of these images that were captured here, the haymaking process, you'll also see that there's going to be some areas in which can't be reached by that equipment safely or efficiently. And so my idea being the sheep guy on the backside, why can't we have this multifactorial system where we can go through, we can harvest that crop, some of that really highly nutritional value material, including that leaf chaff, is going to drop off. Why don't we allow the sheep to come back through here and graze after that process? They can get some of that chaff if they choose to do so, but they can also help clean up around these pilings as well. So that kind of spurred the idea after we saw a lot of this data and showed the support that we could make something of this. Went ahead and put out a submission for this DOE RFP that was available, and we were able to successfully acquire it. And so what I want to do is kind of conclude our conversation here together to talk about some of those objectives we intend on pursuing. So, of course, our biggest area of interest is this concept of hay-ready solar. We're interested in producing these high-quality feedstuffs. As you track some of the market reports as it relates to forages, they certainly rival some of our row grain or row crop grains. And so there is some opportunity there for our producers to get a premium out of these feedstuffs that we are able to create and generate and grow within these systems. There are some challenges, however. The biggest question is, are the current sites accommodating of this type of practice? As I look out at our site currently, given this presentation, I can appreciate that the area in which our project is being conducted in has all the wires buried. And so that allows free movement of our equipment through these sites. Now, a lot of our sites are still having those cab systems, allowing those wires to hang between the rows, which does hinder our ability to do these types of processes at an efficient status. There are impacts on forage yield. There is literature that does support that shading does negatively impact forage yield. And we've got some other preliminary data that does demonstrate this. Because of the shade, there is a bit of a decrease, given that they have reduced sunlight exposure as well as the potential for some reductions in rainfall. But on the backside, we are losing some yield or quantity, but we make up for it on the quality side. As you saw earlier, those forages grown in those shaded areas that were between the rows were of pretty high quality. Also think about community acceptability, and I understand it. I'm not here to say one way or another, but I think people can appreciate the ability to still be able to have these sites within their system and still be able to create a crop of it and continue the farm just as they continue to do so. There are issues and challenges, I'll call them challenges, that are associated with construction impacts on soil health. The way sites have been currently or have previously been built, even though a lot of these grades are quite level, they're still going through here and having to level off some of these sites. As you drive some of these pilings into the ground to help hold up some of these systems, there is a compaction that occurs. Now, previously, there were some folks in the solar industry that were claiming we will allow these systems to go back to previous agricultural production systems if you are not interested in continuing after our 30-year lease. However, there is no data that supports that to be the case. And so, some things that we're looking at are these multi-land use management strategies with the implementation of cover crops and so forth, being able to break up some of those deep compaction layers that are created. Of course, those could have already been here as associated with row crop production. Some other challenges that we've ran into as well is that some of these fields are tiled, and with the implementation and construction of these sites, tiles can get damaged, and trying to develop strategies to help mitigate some of those issues with the excess water. Of course, we're very interesting with the folks in Fabe with precision ag technology. A lot of buzz and interest as it relates to autonomy. Labor is hard to find and acquire, and these sites are quite large. The site that I'm currently sitting in today is 1,034 acres, and our research zone is roughly 88 acres. So double the size of the current largest agrivoltaic system that's in the literature today. We also need to consider end of row turn radiuses as we come to some of these service roads or perhaps the end of the roads that get up to the fence line. Are we able to get our equipment through there? How will we be baling hay if we're going to be baling hay? What type of baler? Can we have a kicker wagon? And all of those kind of questions are going to be addressed through our work. Efficiency is huge. How quick can we get down through these systems without creating damage or causing more time on the back end or fuel use? And at the end of the day, we know that vegetation management is the greatest developer cost post construction. So, again, trying to find those strategies to help mitigate some of those challenges. Last but certainly not least, the area that I'm quite interested in as it relates to livestock production is the thought of complementary grazing strategies. Again, we've talked about the benefits of grazing some of these sites. Very interested on the nutritional quality of these feed sources. Are we providing the nutrition that these animals need? If not, do we have to provide supplemental nutrition? Do we have to provide some of those energy sources that they need? How will those animals behave and so forth? As it relates to health, there's very little known as it relates to the shade impacts. We do know that animals will seek out shelter and shade when they have the availability of that resource. One concern that I have is that because there is minimal sunlight that hits directly below those panels, right there where those pilings or those posts are at, I believe we're going to have a lot of accumulation of fecal material and urine. So there's a concern with nutrient distribution. There's a concern for hoof health and respiratory health on these animals as they continue to spend a lot of time within these areas, specifically in the site. We can also think about poisonous plants. Weed pressure is huge. It's a big challenge. Are those plants out there that are non-target species that can be detrimental or negatively impact our livestock as we're out there working through our systems? From a behavioral standpoint, there is an effect on shade. What is their time budget? How long do they spend within these areas? Are they willing to go outside of those areas and when? Are there grazing preferences as well? Do they find themselves eating more under the panels or closer to that panel drip edge because of the quality of the forage or somewhere else? A lot of those are still unknowns. And at the end of the day, just ensuring that we are meeting those animal needs. So where are we now? Just want to give you some progress of our project here. I'm currently sitting within our site, given our presentation in this area here. Within all these areas, we've got our different replications, and off to the side, I know it's a bit small, apologies for that. You can see the different forage species that we've got grazing as well. On our left-hand side here, the blue area, I should say the green area is where all those wires are buried. The blue area is still areas within this facility that have our wires still hung using that cab system. Here's where we'll be grazing our sheep through our replicated grazing system. One thing that's really interesting here is that in some of these areas, we will be grazing that forage mix that the solar company has placed throughout the entire site, whereas the other is going to be that cool season hay mix that we have elected to place into this site. We do like that because of its increase in nutritional quality. We've also selected specific species that are below that specific threshold of about 18 inches in terms of overall forage maturity height. So just give you kind of a brief layout of what our site looks like and how we intend on completing some of these objectives. And then the last one that I have to share with you today is just looking at some of that progress. I noted earlier that water can be an issue from time to time. Actually, as we're sitting out here, there's not a lot of water because we've got such a rich and lush forage base growing at the moment. We are utilizing some smaller equipment, utilizing UTVs to get in through here to spray. You can see some of our germination early there last year, and this was at the end of the year with that forage growth on the alfalfa. You can also see that we're still using some standardized equipment to be able to drill the seed throughout the site. And then finally, but not least, this is an aerial picture that we get here on a monthly basis to kind of understand the greenery and the growth and how our site is performing from an aerial view. So with that, I appreciate your guys' time. Happy to answer any quick questions here before I've got to peel off to go get some forages clipped. And if you think of anything in the meantime, feel free to drop me a note. I've got my email on the screen. So thank you much.
Brady, thank you. That was fantastic. That is some exciting research, and we look forward to hearing more about that grant and the research data that you get moving forward. I do not see any questions at this moment in the Q&A, but certainly what we can do is we will send any questions that we get, forward them your way, and realize that you're in the field right now, and definitely appreciate you being here for sure. So thank you very, very, very much. Again, if anybody has any questions for Brady, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and we will make sure that he gets them. So,
Awesome. All right.
all
Well,
right.
thank you very much. I'm going to head out to the field. Take
Mm,
care, and we'll see you next time.
sounds good. Thank you. Okay. Next up we have Dara, I'm sorry, Barclay.
Yes.
And please feel free. I'm just going to turn it right over to you and share your screen.
Okay, fantastic. Let me get it pulled up here. Wonderful. Well, thanks. And I love that I get to follow Brady. I do some work with Brady as well, so he is a great resource. So my name is Dara Barclay. I am the program manager for eFields and eBarns. And don't worry, if you've never heard of those programs before, I will introduce both. And I'm going to talk a little bit about on-farm research for livestock producers. So I'm going to kick this off with a general question of what is on-farm research. I pulled a simple explanation from SARE Bulletin. So generally, on-farm research is conducted on a working farm or ranch. It will use plots or locations large enough to allow for the use of standard field equipment and practical data collection. And it's a partnership between a farmer and agricultural service providers, which can include extension, consultants, seed dealers, and more. It uses clearly defined methods of experimental design with replications and statistical analysis. So what does that mean? That's still kind of bulky. It's applicable. It's something that other farmers can repeat with their equipment. So it's very applicable. It's very practical. It's focused on practical data collection that isn't too complicated to be able to collect. It is a partnership, and a good, very simple definition of a partnership in this situation is there's really close cooperation with joint rights and responsibilities for all of the partners on farm research projects. And lastly, it's well done. It has well done experimental design. So there's some replications for statistical analysis. And don't worry, I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Some common terminology before I kind of dive into some examples of some on-farm research that we've done. You might hear the word protocol thrown around when talking about on-farm research. A protocol is just a document that has any background information, rationale for why you're doing the project, different objectives, the methodology, the design, basically anything that you would need to know before learning more about implementing the project. You'll hear people talk about replication or replicability. It's being able to repeat a method or test multiple times to be able to get enough data to be able to see the consistency in different treatments. So instead of just doing 2 comparisons, you have replication to be able to see it in different areas. So this can apply for livestock producers. This can apply to having multiple plots or herds, or it can be looking at data over multiple years. And then a treatment is an independent variable that can be manipulated for testing in a research project. So when you're comparing what's usually done to what you want to try to do, that's a treatment. And then randomization. We try to do randomization to be able to have, again, randomization. So it decreases the odds that variabilities will influence any results. So when we're talking about this with livestock, we're looking at being able to randomize enough that any differences in animal characteristics from animal to animal won't mess with the results too much. So now that I've gotten that out of the way of what is on-farm research and kind of some of the terminology, I want to talk a little bit about why on-farm research matters so much to OSU Extension, to the state of Ohio. It really turns a theory into useful practical advice. So we can address real world challenges. We can take questions and concerns from farmers and producers to be able to address those real challenges. We can test out different things in authentic farming conditions with all the variabilities that come with that. It can encourage innovation among producers. It can accelerate the adoption of new and beneficial practices. We can test it out and be able to accelerate the adoption and acceptance of new ideas that might be really beneficial. And it improves farm efficiency and profitability. And at the end of this, our essential piece of the puzzle is farmer participation. That's what we're really looking for, to have really, really good results that are really beneficial for farmers and producers across the state. So how does having local data help farmers at the end of the day? Well, like we said before, it's more applicable. For the specific producer that's doing research, they can have more specific results for their farm than broader recommendations can give them. We can base things off of recommendations to be able to see how things work for a specific farm, but we can get more specific with that specific data. It can lower input costs through identifying real inefficiency in operations. And there can be more reliable yield and production predictions with that specific data. And some other things that can just be more environmental and community friendly is it can encourage good practices and less waste of resources. So if there's a specific product you're using on a pasture to maintain weeds, you may be using too much. You may be wasting some of that product. There may be a waste of water somewhere that we can maybe redirect. We can just work on a lot of those good practices and less waste overall. And then we can foster collaboration between farmers and local stakeholders in the community. So being able to kind of foster those relationships and build those partnerships up. So I said I was the program manager for eFields and eBarns. I know not everyone is always super knowledgeable of maybe what those programs are. We're working on getting the information out some more. So everything started with eFields in 2017 with a focus on row crop production with a tagline of eFields is connecting science to fields. So our focus is on advancing production agriculture using field scale research and the translation of research to be able to help farmers improve farm efficiency and profitability. So once we had some success with eFields and getting a lot of contributors to that, the next big question was, how can Extension make animal science research more applicable to farmers? Generally, when research is happening in a university setting, it goes through all of the hoops to be able to go into some scientific journals for other scientists. But a lot of times we're missing that applied use, being able to actually get some of that information to producers to be able to use and benefit from. So that's where eBarns came in. So our tagline for eBarns is connecting science to farmers, a little bit of a different spin. We began in 2022 with a focus on farm level livestock related projects. We also have equine represented as well, so large animals. We bring in a lot of information into our report from the Department of Animal Sciences, veterinary medicine, statewide research and surveys that happen, and then trials based on producer-driven questions. So a whole host of different things. And here you'll see our covers for each of the reports that we've had so far. You'll see we don't have a 2025 edition yet, but that is in progress. We usually release that in August sometime before Farm Science Review. So you'll see we've focused on some forages on the cover and then beef. And then last year we focused on sheep. Great picture from Brady there. So what are we looking for when we're looking for eBarns projects and looking to get farmers and producers involved in different on-farm projects? Well, at the end of the day, we're looking for farm, field, or herd level projects that investigate a question that livestock and large animal owners have about any management decisions, nutrition questions, sustainability, and so much more. So anything that is investigating a question that would help those folks. When we're thinking about getting started with on-farm research, it begins with asking questions that could impact a variety of things. I have some listed on here. So animal performance, average daily gain, forage quality, a whole bunch of different things that we could start asking questions about and then start getting really specific with those questions. So some examples of things that we can look at. Very simply, the simplest thing we can do without getting too hands-on with any animals is looking at some farm business analysis. We have some great tools and some great staff in Extension that can assist with farm business analysis, and we can work on some projects around that. We can ask questions of, are we feeding efficiently? So asking questions about feed conversion, rate of gain ratio versus the cost. We can look at very simple projects around feeder type, and if there's waste of time and if there's too much labor incorporated into that. We can ask questions about health concerns and if they're being managed well. So parasite monitoring, looking at different options for fly control, pre and probiotic usage. We can ask a question about, do we have good animal management? So what are our actual birth rates looking like? What are our AI rates? What are those numbers looking like? What are the culling rates? Is there some observational herd confirmations that we can do? Can we better manage pastures and grazing? We have a variety of drone projects going on. So there's drone seeding and application studies that we can do. There's pasture soil testing we can look at. And there's cover crop grazing that might be interesting. You can also ask a question about forage quality. There's alfalfa testing that can be available, pest scouting options to see what's really harming the forage quality. We can look at how we can best utilize the manure that we're dealing with. We can compare manure applications and nutrient value testing and so much more. And then lastly, on this slide, we can look at possible surveys to learn more. There's a lot of interest in statewide efforts, so collecting information across the state to see how things are comparing. So looking at forage yields, pasture weed issues, what's the problem in the pastures as far as weeds go, and what hay quality is looking like across the state. So those are just some questions to kind of stimulate some ideas of what you might want to ask when thinking about on-farm research. So what does it look like for livestock? So if you have experience with the e-field side with on-farm research and with row crops, it might be hard to kind of see what that might look like in a livestock setting. So there's kind of two options that you can go with. The first is a very simple setup, splitting into at least two groups. That can mean splitting up a herd into 2 or more pens or 2 or more pastures for the duration of the data collection. So an example for testing diets would be one group would get the regular diet or the control, and the other group would get the treatment or a new diet that you want to try out to see how those would compare. With this, we wouldn't have enough for statistical analysis. You want at least 3 or 4 groups to be able to have a couple different groups, but this is still very valuable in collecting information. We can still do a lot of really good work with this setup. The other option is really looking at a more statistical setup. So this example, I believe, was for lambs specifically, but it can probably be applied for a variety of species. So if you have the ability to have 6 to 8 pens and be able to have at least 4 to 8 animals per pen, that would allow for replication and being able to test out multiple treatments or multiple diets to be able to collect a variety of information and multiple data sets to be able to compare and see how those diets are actually working out for those animals. So our research in 2024 covered 15 counties with 31 research sites, and 4 were statewide projects, and we had about 50 contributors. Our primary locations for collecting that information was our OSU agricultural research stations across the state and some on-farm collaborators, which we're hoping to expand a lot more on. We had 29 total studies. At the top there, we had 9 forage studies and then a few of each of the species areas to be able to represent all of those. And you can see our map here of kind of where those were located. I pulled some stats last week of kind of what our reach was looking like for our online copy. So this is kind of where our numbers are as far as how many people have accessed the report in the past little less than a year. We did print about 200 copies that we distributed a lot of at the Farm Science Review in 2024. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to get some more printed and have those in a couple locations around Farm Science Review this year as well. So if you're out there, you might be able to grab a copy of the newest edition. And I wanted to talk about a few different studies, and I was trying to figure out which ones might be the most applicable. And so I just pulled our most visited ones. So the people that have the reports that have the most visits. I pulled those out, and I felt like that was a really good example of some of the really great studies that we had in the last edition. So the first here is our corn don resistance screening summary. I believe they are still doing some work on this year, so there should be some more information and data this year as well. This was performed at 3 locations in South Charleston, Apple Creek, and Bucyrus. And this was looking at the difference between hybrids and their resistance to don from corn ear rot. So there's a QR code on here if you'd like to get more in-depth information, or that Go link. You just type that into your browser there, and it'll take you to a bunch of data that they have available around this summary. And then there's a more concise summary in the eBarns report. A really great study. The next on the list was autumn olive control. Now, this was performed over 2 years over in Noble County, and it was looking at evaluating dormant winter applied treatments to manage autumn olive in pasture systems. So this team of some great extension folks and specialists looked at 6 applications for being able to control this in pastures. And the data was in the 2023 report and the 2024. There are several treatments that showed really adequate control, being able to control that. You'll see there, that was a treated autumn olive plant in May following application in late February. And then the next on the list is our mechanical control of pasture weeds. This was also done over in Noble County. Some great pasture work coming out of Noble County. In this study, they were trying to figure out what weed populations and pastured forages could be managed without the use of herbicides, so without that additional input. And they found that mowing in July only for this specific study and location, for mowing in July only, that maximized the forages and it minimized the weeds. And they also were able to tell that some weeds like cockleburr seem to still require herbicide treatment for optimum control. So there were still a few that weren't able to be controlled very well. And you'll see on the right there, there's a 2x2 grid that you probably remember from Brady's presentation as well, that was used to select different quadrants to be able to sample both the forages and the weeds in that section. And then next up, we have one of our surveys. So the Delaware County Extension team put out 2 surveys last year for the eBarns report, and this one was one of the ones that rated the highest on our visits. So the Beef Breeding Program Impact Survey was put out to be able to better understand how producers are managing beef cattle operations, specifically for their reproduction purposes. They had a lot of great questions in here. I just pulled out a few examples. They had 57 responses from Ohioans. And one of the questions, they're able to put in an estimate of the number of animals for each producer. So how much are represented in this survey. And in the total responses, there were almost just under 4,000 animals represented in the responses here. So one of the questions I pulled out was what was the preferred breeding methods? You can see it was almost a little neck and neck of AI and natural service. The natural service came out on top of what the preferred breeding methods were. And then there was also a question around who breeds your cows. There's that chart on there as well. If you would like to see some videos, some really short, concise videos around the Delaware team's surveys, there's a QR code there or a link there for you to be able to go to their YouTube channel to be able to see a little bit more about those surveys that they have put out. And the next on my list here is our tick update. This is a statewide effort. This part of the report is put together by our Franklin County A&R educator, Tim McDermott. And this map here has the yellow stars were sightings of longhorn ticks as of June of 2024. So we'll have an updated map in this coming report to kind of see where we're at this point. But the main point of this tick update in the report was talking more and educating more about the top tick for medical concerns in livestock, which is the longhorn tick. And then there's also a QR code on here for a fact sheet that is referenced in that part of the report. We do have some folks in the counties that are looking at maybe doing some more tick research and surveying to be able to better support our livestock producers, especially our cattle folks that are going to have some longhorn tick activity. And the last one on my list here was the intestinal parasite surveillance in the swine section. This was a statewide effort, and this part of the report was a little bit of a preview. It didn't have all of the final results because they were still working on more data collection, but they were able to put in some of the initial results that they were seeing. So this study was done to be able to try to characterize the occurrence of different intestinal parasite issues for pigs that are raised on free-range systems. So this was for any operation that had any outdoor access. So it could be fully free range, like you see here in this picture when they were doing some collection, or it could just be they even have some access to outside. For this, they had collection and testing of fecal samples, which you see represented. They're collecting in this picture here. And they also did a farm management survey for each farm that they collected samples at. So they have some more management information behind that as well. And we will be having a more complete results in the 2025 edition that'll be out here in August. So you'll be able to see the full project be able to be represented in the 2025 report. Then with that, I wanted to be able to give you a quick link to be able to see more about our eBarns reports. If you go to go.osu.edu/eBarns reports, that'll take you to the main page. There's also a link on there that I don't have shown here for the eBarns database. That will take you to a searchable database to be able to search all 3 editions of the report. So you can search by author, you can search by county, you can search by topic. So you can be able to kind of pull out those different pieces from any of the 3 reports that we have published online. And then I have my contact information there as well. If you have an interest in learning more about doing on-farm research with livestock producers, or if you just have any more questions about anything I talked about today. So happy to answer any questions that I can.
And last but certainly not least, a little Manure Expo preview from Kendall Lovejoy. So Kendall, when you are ready.
Well, thanks for having me this morning. Really appreciate the opportunity to share with you a little bit about the North American Manure Expo. Yes, it is a real expo, and yes, it is all about manure, and we're really excited to bring it back to the state of Ohio. A little bit of background and history on the North American Manure Expo. It began in 2001 with the Nutrient Applicators Association of Wisconsin and the University of Wisconsin Extension hosting this as an annual event. In 2013, the North American Manure Expo was born or formalized and has been an annual exposition traveling around the United States ever since. Ohio has had the privilege of hosting in 2008 in Mercer County and 2016 at the Molly Cairn Ag Research Center in London, Ohio. And we're really excited to bring it to Fulton County here in 2025. On July 30th and 31st, the Manure Expo is going to make its debut here in Fulton County at our fairgrounds. We're really excited to host this event up here in the Western Lake Erie Basin and really get to showcase what we do with manure here locally, not only in the state of Ohio, but specifically in this Western Lake Erie Basin. Obviously, with our nutrient management plans and H2 Ohio programs and all the additional different certifications, the Certified Livestock Manager program, we view manure maybe a little bit differently in the application of it. But as you all know, as certified livestock managers, there's 3 things for certain that we're going to have to deal with in life. That's death, taxes, and manure. And so what better way to work together with some different colleagues and come together as an industry rather to learn more about the different technological advancements that are taking place in the manure industry, talk to the leading manufacturers of the equipment that's helping to provide some of those advancements, catch up on the latest research from universities across the United States, and gather insights from other professional manure applicators, custom operators, livestock individuals as well. I want to just take some time here this morning with the brief time that we have left to kind of walk through what the expo might look like if you're not familiar with it or haven't attended events in the past. It's a 2-day expo that generally starts with tours. So on day 1, Wednesday, July the 30th, we're going to have 4 different tours that are available for you to join. This is an additional paid tour that you must purchase your tickets in advance for. So if the next 4 slides that preview are of interest to you, make sure you visit the manureexpo.com website to get your pre-sale tour ticket purchased. The tour tickets get you 2-day access to the event, and you'll have opportunity to engage with not only the tour participants, but then the trade show afterwards as well. Our first tour, departing on Wednesday morning there is going to be precision manure irrigation for maximum impact. What we'll be doing is traveling down to a dairy in the Northwest Ohio area who's really incorporated the 360 rain units to help with the precision application of their manure. If you're not familiar with these units, this is a really great tool and technology that's been released here in the last couple of years and really taking the industry by storm, allowing us to further expand our manure application season through the use of this autonomous irrigation robot. Really, really neat technology that we're going to get to see up close and personal if you choose to take a look at Tour 1. Our second tour, we're going to be taking a stop at Bridgewater Dairy. So this bus will be headed over to the dairy, and we'll be taking a look at the different innovative manure and energy solutions that they've put in place. Not only will we get to tour the dairy and just get to see kind of some of the ins and outs of the 4,000 head dairy there, we'll also take a look and have a little bit of a discussion on the methane digester that's located on their property. I won't get up too close and personal to that, but talk about how those methane digesters have been impacting the dairy industry and the opportunity that it's creating for dairies around the United States. Additionally, something kind of unique that Bridgewater has done in the last couple of years is they've expanded their manure pipeline. So they have solid pipe buried. I think it's up to 4 miles away now from the dairy's facility. Allows them to spread and get their manure applied to farther distances away from the farm, improving the application of nutrients and getting those nutrients to where they need to be rather than where it's most convenient to be applied. Our third tour that will be taking place Wednesday morning is going to be visiting two different local farms, both local to Fulton County here. First one is Andre Farms and Compost. If you were on the last month's or April's CLM webinar, you heard from Nate and got to learn a little bit more about his operation. And if that was that wasn't enough information or intriguing enough for you, you want to see it in person, this is the place to be. Come out on tour number 3 and check out Nate's operation. They're a Class 2 EPA composting facility where they're taking food waste, livestock feed waste, and bedding material and creating a nutrient-dense compost that they're using to apply to fields all across Northwest Ohio and helping solve a number of different issues, whether it's with the food waste or with the need for more organic nutrients in the fertilizer system and the fertilizer space. Second stop on that tour is going to be visiting a local beef operation who has taken some part in some really unique composting research through a GLRI grant that Ohio State University Extension applied for and took over for about 2020 to 2023. There's several different producers that were doing composting work on beef pen pack manure. And this producer just did really several unique practices with those grant opportunities and those grant dollars, not only composting in windrows, but then in the picture there you see there is using his manure storage facility with some static aeration through there with those PVC pipes and just a lot of unique different research studies and trials that this grower has done. So we're going to be visiting his operation and just kind of get his perspective on how practical composting can be in a traditional livestock sense. Fourth and final tour that's available for attendees to the North American Manure Expo is going to be visiting Seiler Farms. Les and Jerry here in Fulton County are conservation legends, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Winners of the 2023 National Conservation Legacy Award for the American Soybean Association. Les and Jerry have really adopted so many different conservation practices and have really been a pinnacle of conservation, and not only in Ohio, but in the nation. And so we're really excited to visit their farm. We'll take a look at their two-stage ditch and talk about some of the different conservation practices that they apply on their farm, including no-till and cover crops, and how all of these things combine to help improve their farm's profitability, their bottom line, and improve the impact on environment. Once we get the tours wrapped up, we're all going to head over to another local dairy, Oakshade Dairy, where we're going to see the pit agitation demonstrations. And so this is where participants of the expo, whether you were on the tours or not, get to see the equipment up close and personal for the first time. We're going to get whether it's sticks or these agitation boats into a local dairy pit. We're going to get to see them work firsthand. We'll hear from the industry representatives that represent these machines, and we'll get to see them work in action, which is a really great place to see them and get your personal opinions on the different agitation equipment that is available on the market today and see the latest and greatest in those spaces of the technology. Once the agitation demonstrations are wrapped up on day one, we'll return to the expo site, the fairgrounds, for lunch and visiting with our trade show. And lots of different things happening throughout that day, but really this is an intentional time for you to meet with different vendors throughout the show. Here you see pictured a pipe bridge manufactured by Ford Equipment here local to Ohio. I believe the pipe bridge debuted in 2023 at the Wisconsin Manure Expo. Made an appearance 24 in New York, and we're certainly excited to have them back in 25 at the Ohio Expo. A lot of great opportunity just to network with the latest and greatest folks in the manure application space, whether it's their manufacturers or researchers. They're all going to be on site in their various respective areas. A lot of equipment will be on site to be viewed and discussed with the industry representatives who will be here as well. Some exciting things that we have happening day one include rapid manure transfer demonstration. We're going to be bringing in a manure pit safety or a manure pit rescue trailer. This is to be a simulator trailer through the National Education Center for Agricultural Safety in partnership with Nationwide Insurance and Ohio Farm Bureau. We're really excited to bring this tool here to demonstrate for the attendees of the expo and show and showcase some of the impacts that safety training can have, not only for first responders, but for us as applicators as well. Expo day one closes with a barbecue. You're not going to want to miss that. We're really grateful for the Ohio Pork Council and several other folks who are helping to support the barbecue in the evening. And then we'll head into day two. July 31st is when the big action takes place. We'll start off the day with educational sessions, rotating sessions in various tents for you to hear the latest and greatest in research and technology from university professionals and industry professionals alike. And then we'll head into the demonstrations. And this is probably what I would see as the most fun part of the day, getting to see the big iron up and close. So we'll have several different dry pack spreaders on site, compost litter spreaders, what have you, solid manure spreaders on site for you to get up close. We'll fill them up with pen pack manure, and we'll get to see them work in action. So you get to see the spread patterns, hear from the industry representative, and follow up behind that machine at a safe and reasonable distance to really evaluate how they work side by side by side. The afternoon will include liquid applicator demos. And so we'll get to see those tankers out and operating, look at the different toolbars that may be behind them for injection, and more of the same there. Also on day two of the expo, we'll have some different industry sessions. We'll have a spill response and restoration demonstration and plenty of time to network at the trade show and with those industry representatives. That's just a brief overview of the North American Manure Expo. I hope that was clear, but I hope that as you anticipate the expo coming here very shortly at the end of July, you'll make your travel plans and arrangements. And so I'm really excited to host this, and there's a lot of diligent work being done on an extension standpoint to help put this together. But as you can see there at the bottom of the screen, it takes a lot of great partners and a lot of great folks to put on an event of this scale. If there's anything that I could ask of you is that you help us market this event. So whether it's something of interest for you to come personally and attend, if you have a group of applicators in your area, maybe it's a local equipment manufacturer that doesn't know about it or doesn't know how to get connected with the right folks to maybe put their equipment on display at the expo. I'm going to drop my information here in the chat. I'll drop Glenn Arnold's information in the chat, probably both pretty familiar folks to you who are helping put on this event, the North American Manure Expo. And last and not least, I'd encourage you to get out there and share this expo on Facebook, social media. You can find us on there. But really helping us to get the word out to folks who are needing to learn more about manure and how we're applying manure safely, responsibly, and environmentally friendly here in the state of Ohio. So that's all I have, Heather. I really appreciate you having me on. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them regarding the expo, but I'll drop my information here as well.
Well, Kendall, thank you. We appreciate that preview. We look forward to that event at the end of July. any questions for any of our speakers. We appreciate all our speakers being here. So any questions for any of our speakers, again, please feel free to put those in the Q&A. I'm not seeing any questions at the moment.
I'll add real quickly, we will be offering CLM credits and CCA credits at the North American Manure Expo 2 for pretty much all the sessions, whether it's demonstrations or education sessions, tours. Great opportunity for you to get some extra credits if you're looking for it and have some fun while you're doing it.
Yes, fantastic. And finally, thank you all for joining us. Please join us again on August 4th for the next CLM webinar, and you can register at the link you see. Again, another announcement, please join us for another field day, August 28th. Mark your calendars, August 28th at the OSU Lima campus. There is a OSU Lima soil health, drainage, water quality field day. So mark that, more details to come. Any questions for our OSU water quality team, please feel free to reach out to us at the email listed below. We appreciate everybody being here. We appreciate our speakers, and have a wonderful day.